How the night was understood in the ancient world. When the sun went quiet, the meaning of night in ancient times. Close your eyes, feel the air change. Listen not to sound, but to silence. Because in the ancient world, when the sun slipped beyond the edge of the earth, the world transformed. The night wasn't just darkness, it was a presence, a mystery, a threshold between the visible and the invisible. Tonight, we begin a journey into that mystery, a slow walk beneath ancient stars, through deserts, temples, forests, and villages, all wrapped in the hush of night. Let us begin in ancient Mesopotamia, between the rivers of Tigris and Euphrates. There, when the day ended, the gods of night awoke. The people lit small lamps, not to chase the darkness away, but to honor it. To walk after dusk was to risk meeting spirits, omens, or gods in disguise. The sky was read like a scroll, each star a word, each constellation a sentence. Priests, known as Baru, studied the heavens, believing that dreams and stars spoke together in the quiet. For the Mesopotamians, the night was a book only the brave could read. Now step into the cool marble of ancient Greece. Here, the night was ruled by Nyx, the primordial goddess of darkness. She was older than the Olympians. Even Zeus feared her. She gave birth to Hypnos, god of sleep, and to Thanatos, god of death, and to Enaro, the spirits of dreams who passed through gates each night, one made of horn, the other of ivory. The Greeks believed that some dreams were true, and others were illusions. The wise watched their dreams closely. The foolish ignored them. That to fall asleep, then, was not escape. It was crossing a veil. Let us travel now to ancient Egypt, where night wasn't absence, but a journey. Each night, the sun god Ra sailed through the underworld, the Duat. He passed through 12 gates, fought off serpents of chaos, was swallowed by Nut, the sky goddess, and reborn at dawn. The Egyptians saw sleep as mirroring this journey. Each dream, each moment of unconsciousness, was a mini passage through the underworld, and to wake up, a resurrection. So elders said prayers before bed, laid down facing sacred directions, placed amulets beneath pillows to protect the soul during its nightly voyage. In China, the night was yin, soft, cold, hidden, internal. The moon was not feminine or passive, but reflective and wise. The stars were spirit points on the back of a great celestial beast. Old poems tell of sages walking by moonlight to gain clarity, because only in darkness, they believed, could certain truths be seen. The quiet was not emptiness, it was a space for revelation. And in India, night was governed by Ratri, the Vedic goddess of dusk and rest. She did not demand sleep, she offered it gently. Her presence was invoked in hymns, asking for protection from wild beasts, bandits, and the darkness within one's own heart. The world slowed, firelight replaced sunlight, and the soul, unburdened by work, could turn inward. Even common homes followed rhythms. Water poured before doorways, oil lamps lit in threes. Incense carried prayers into the unseen. Night was not simply a break from day, it was a return to essence. So tonight, as you lie in your own bed, you are not escaping the world, you are entering another one, just as they did thousands of years ago. A world where dreams are maps, where silence is sacred, where the soul walks freely under the stars. In our next chapter, we will explore how ancient people prepared for sleep, not as a biological need, but as a ritual of passage between worlds. But for now, let the lamps dim, let the shadows stretch, and let night wrap softly around you, not as fear, but as a friend. Sleep deeply. You are entering sacred time, the descent into silence. Bedtime rituals of the ancient world. Night had meaning, not just because it came after day, but because it came differently to each soul. Tonight, we slip deeper, not into history as dates and wars, but into the soft fabric of rituals before sleep, as practiced by those who once looked to the stars for protection, not answers. We begin in ancient Egypt, where sleep was not a daily function, but a sacred return to the underworld. Before lying down, many Egyptians performed a small purification, a rinsing of the hands and face, with water mixed with natron or lotus oil. This act wasn't for cleanliness, but to clear the pathways of the soul. Amulets were placed near the bed, often shaped like scarabs or eyes of Horus. They served not just as protection, but as companions through the night journey with Ra, the sun god, as he sailed beneath the world. Some whispered prayers like, "May I see the sunrise again, and walk among the living." In Mesopotamia, households had gods of sleep and dream. Before bed, clay tablets record the custom of laying one's sandals neatly at the door, not for order, but to prevent wandering spirits from stepping into your path while you slept. Some placed bowls of water beneath the bed to absorb nightmares. Others tied protective knots with string, believing that dreams passed through them and were filtered by the shape of the weave. Bedtime was not an end. It was a negotiation with the unknown. In ancient Greece, especially among the educated and philosophical classes, sleep was approached with curiosity and care. A cup of warm wine with honey was taken slowly, the body washed, and the mind calmed through gentle music or recitation of Homeric verses. Socrates, we are told, would lie down after speaking of death, not as a fear, but as a possible dream or a journey to where old souls waited in conversation. Some Greeks believed that one could influence their dreams by focusing their thoughts before sleep, like praying silently for a specific vision. This was called dream incubation, and temples of Asclepius, the god of healing, offered entire chambers just for this. Stone rooms where seekers would sleep on sacred hides, hoping for dreams that offered cures. Now we enter Rome, where family was central to nighttime peace. In many homes, Narration small household altars were tended in the evening. Offerings were made to the spirits of ancestors before the children were put to bed. Sleep wasn't solitary. Elders told stories of past lives. Nurses whispered lullabies that weren't just soft. They were spells of comfort, protection, and gratitude. And when candles were extinguished, the room wasn't plunged into blackness. It was gently surrendered to the realm of somnus, the god of sleep. In ancient India, the bedtime routine followed Ayurvedic rhythm. Oil was rubbed on the feet, sometimes the scalp, warming the nervous system. Water was sipped, not swallowed, to remind the body of stillness. One did not enter sleep quickly. One was invited. It was common to chant mantras softly, such as Om, Shanti, Shanti, peace, peace, peace. Some read from sacred texts. Others offered incense or burned ghee lamps at altars near the sleeping area, so that divine presence would not fade in the dark. And in China, night rituals reflected yin energy, receptive, slow, cooling. Doors were locked with wooden bars, not out of fear, but to contain the breath of the home. Hot tea infused with jasmine or chrysanthemum was sipped in silence. Families bowed to ancestral tablets, spoke names aloud, and, in doing so, felt their dreams would be watched by those who came before. Sleep, for the Chinese sage, was a time when the soul left the body to learn, and returned wiser by morning. Everywhere we look in the ancient world, bedtime was not passive. It was active surrender. It was ritual, rhythm, and reverence. Tonight, as you rest, know that you too are part of this thread. You too are preparing, not just to close your eyes, but to open something deeper. In our next chapter, we'll explore how the ancients interpreted dreams, not as nonsense, but as messages, visions, and sometimes warnings. But now, allow your own ritual to begin. Whether it's breath, prayer, or silence, step gently into the doorway of night. Sleep softly. The ritual has already begun. Messengers of the dark, the meaning of dreams in ancient civilizations. You're asleep now, or almost, floating in that soft space where thought becomes image, where time forgets itself, where reality is no longer certain. To the ancients, this place was sacred. Dreams were not dismissed. They were studied, honored, feared. They were believed to be messages from gods, ancestors, or the soul itself. Tonight, we open the veil of sleep and step into the dream world. As they saw it, let us begin in Mesopotamia, home of the first written dream archives. Clay tablets dating back over 4,000 years contain detailed accounts of dreams, noted by priests, kings, and commoners alike. A king might dream of a falling star. A farmer might dream of walking backward into his home. Each image had meaning, and dream interpreters, called Baru, were trained to analyze them. They believed that certain animals, movements, or symbols in dreams predicted health, harvest, danger, or favor from the gods. Dreams were they were also portents. Before great decisions, marriages, wars, treaties, leaders sought guidance from dreams, and if no dream came, they sometimes slept in temples, hoping for divine instruction. In ancient Egypt, dreams were equally powerful. They were called nightly journeys of the ka, a soul's temporary departure from the body. Egyptians believed the soul left the body each night, traveling through hidden realms, sometimes visiting gods, other times encountering the dead. There were dream books, with interpretations such as, to dream of a snake is to receive hidden knowledge, to dream of losing teeth is to lose authority, to dream of clear water is to be blessed by the Nile. Some dreams required action. If an ominous vision appeared, you might perform a ritual the next morning, spitting salt, burning incense, or reciting protection spells aloud. To ignore a dream was to invite its consequences. In Greece, dreams were classified. Aristotle, Hippocrates, and later Artemidorus of Daldis all wrote about the categories of dreams: oneroi, althenoi, true dreams, oneroi sud, false or symbolic dreams, fantasi images without meaning, enhypnia, dreams from bodily sensations. But the most important dreams were the ones sought intentionally, especially in the temples of a god of healing. People would sleep in sacred enclosures called abaton, where they might dream of a snake, a godly figure, a whispered voice, and in the morning, priests would interpret the dream and prescribe remedies. Dreams were medicine. Dreams were diagnosis. Dreams were confession. In Rome, dreams held both political and spiritual weight. Julius Caesar's wife once dreamt of his statue bleeding, an omen that preceded his assassination. Roman generals, before battle, often consulted dream interpreters. Even senators kept personal scrolls to note nightly visions, dreams of flight, fire, water, of familiar faces appearing with strange words, were seen not as confusion, but as coded wisdom. Even Cicero, the great orator, believed that dreams were a language the gods whispered, because daylight was too loud. In China, the philosophy of dreams was layered. Taoists believed the soul traveled during sleep. One soul stayed near the body, the other wandered into realms of spirit and shadow. Dreams could carry ancestral messages, warnings from nature, or glimpses of past lives. That there were dream almanacs, listing hundreds of images and their interpretations. A dream of rain in winter foretold healing. A dream of a locked gate warned of spiritual stagnation. A dream of music was always a good sign. And in India, dreams were part of cosmic rhythm. The Vedas and Upanishads describe dreams as layers of consciousness, not separate from waking life, but a continuation. Dreams were said to come from the body random, the mind psychological, the soul spiritual. The last kind was called divyasvapna, divine dream. To receive one was rare, to ignore one, unwise. Yogis trained themselves to watch their dreams with detachment, observing their own emotions inside the vision, like a lantern floating inside mist. Dreams were not mere stories, they were mirrors. And so tonight, as your own dreams begin to rise, perhaps you'll remember that ancient people once welcomed them with reverence, as messengers, as guides, as voices from the unseen. In our next chapter, we'll explore the dangers and fears of night, why the dark was both sacred and feared, and how ancient people protected themselves from its unseen forces. But for now, let the dream come. You do not need to interpret it now, only to receive it. Close your eyes. The messengers are already near. Shadows and spirits, why the night was feared and how they fought back. The night, for all its beauty, was never entirely safe. The same stars that guided travelers also watched over things unseen, things that did not belong to the world of light. In the ancient world, people did not pretend to be brave in the dark. They were respectful, sometimes terrified, often prepared, because to close your eyes in the presence of night was to surrender to what you could not see, and what might be watching you back. Let us walk first into Mesopotamia, where night was, the playground of spirits and demons. The Utaku and Adimu, restless ghosts of those improperly buried, were believed to rise after sunset, seeking warmth, voice, or revenge. To protect themselves, people carved spells into clay tablets and placed them near their beds. They whispered chants to the moon god Sin, asking him to bind the jaws of the wandering dead. Priests wore amulets shaped like lions, eagles, or circles of rope, symbols meant to confuse or trap evil forces. It was believed that sleep made the soul vulnerable, so protection wasn't just comfort, it was survival. In Egypt, fear of the dark centered on chaos, the eternal enemy of order, or Mat. Night was when the great serpent, Apophis, tried to swallow the sun god Ra. If Apophis succeeded, the sun would not rise. The world would collapse, so even in sleep, prayers were made to help Ra survive the night. Children were given doll-like figures of Base, the dwarf god of protection, placed by the bed to guard dreams and chase away evil spirits. Mothers recited incantations over their children's heads, asking Hathor to shine a hidden light in the dream world. Darkness was not passive, it was a battlefield, and everyone had a role. In Greece, the night birthed not only dreams, but nightmares, literal children of Nyx. One of them was Moros, the spirit of doom. Another, Epiolos, the bringer of sleep paralysis. The Greeks believed that nightmares were not always metaphors, they could be actual visitations. To prevent them, small sachets of herbs, laurel, thyme, or garlic were tied to bedposts. Doors were locked, not just for safety, but to keep spirits of the dead from drifting in. In rural homes, olive branches were burned to cleanse the air, and some painted the eye of Apollo above windows, so that even in darkness, a divine eye remained open. In Rome, fear of night was part of everyday life. It was said that the Lemures, malevolent spirits of the dead, roamed in May, especially at midnight, to counter them. The Romans held Lemuria, a ritual where black beans were thrown behind the shoulder at night, as the head of the house repeated, "With these beans I redeem me and mine." Sleep was also protected with invocations to household gods, Lares and Pinates, who watched over walls and hearths. The dark was domesticated through fire, prayer, and routine, but never underestimated. In India, the night was home to both divine and demonic forces. The Rakshasas, shape-shifting spirits, were said to prowl in darkness, and sleep, though sacred, was a time when the mind could be invaded. To protect the self, people recited shlokas, sacred verses, such as, "Let my breath be steady, my heart be pure, my mind be clear, my soul untouched." Incense of sandalwood and neem was burned. Copper vessels of water were placed near the head, and mirrors were often covered, so that wandering spirits would not mistake a reflection for a doorway. In China, yin energy at night was believed to attract both blessing and danger. Darkness was associated with imbalance if not properly honored. To guard against this, doors were sealed with red slips of paper, marked with calligraphy to ward off ghosts. It was believed that sudden coldness in a room at night meant a hungry ghost had entered. So the elderly left small bowls of rice or fruit on windowsills to satisfy the forgotten. Children were told not to sleep with mirrors or knives nearby. Such objects could trap spirits or cut spiritual threads during sleep. What we see across all these ancient cultures is not a denial of fear, but a graceful relationship with it. They did not hide from the dark. They learned to walk through it with preparation, ritual, and reverence. Tonight, as you lie in bed, know that you are surrounded not just by walls, but by thousands of years of prayers, herbs, chants, guardians, and quiet courage. The night is not empty, but it does not have to be feared. In our next chapter, we'll step into the role of moon and stars, how they were mapped, named, and trusted as both navigation and divination during ancient nights. But for now, breathe slowly, let the shadows soften. You are not alone in the dark, you never were. Sky maps and silent gods, the stars as symbols in the ancient night. When the world turned quiet, and fires were the only light, ancient eyes turned upward, not with boredom, but with awe, because above them, beyond the smoke and shadow, the sky came alive. The stars were not decoration, they were language, signals, beings. Each point of light was a soul, each constellation, a memory. To look at the sky was to remember where you came from and perhaps where you were going. Let us begin under the skies of Mesopotamia, where the first known astronomers walked. There, scribes studied the stars, not to discover them, but to understand their moods, the moon phases, the rising of Venus, the crossing of constellations, all were tracked meticulously on clay tablets. One such record, the Mulapin, dates back over 3,000 years. It names dozens of star groups, each associated with gods, animals, myths. They believed that certain alignments of stars meant shifts in human fate. A bright star near the horizon might mean war. A fading moon might predict drought. But even more than prediction, the stars were protectors. You did not sleep without them. In Egypt, the sky was a living goddess, not arched over the earth, like a canopy. Her body was filled with stars. Each night, she swallowed the sun. Each morning, she gave birth to it again. The stars were not far away. They were part of your body, your afterlife, your journey. In the Book of the Dead, the deceased, were often depicted becoming stars, joining the eternal sky. It was believed that those who lived well could ride the solar bark along the Milky Way. To sleep under the stars in Egypt was to be watched over by the divine. In Greece, the stars told stories. The sky was a theater of memory. Every pattern held a tale. Orion, the great hunter; Cassiopeia, the vain queen; Pegasus, the winged horse; Andromeda, chained to fate. To know the stars was to know your place in myth. Philosophers like Pythagoras believed that the planets made music as they moved, a harmony too divine for mortal ears. They called it the music of the spheres. And the moon, soft, silver, changing, was both a timekeeper and a mirror of the soul. To sleep during a full moon was thought to stir intense dreams, visions, even madness. To sleep without seeing the moon was to risk disorientation of the spirit. In Rome, the stars were linked to destiny. The zodiac signs we know today were absorbed from Greek and Babylonian systems, but took on Roman character. People began to believe that the moment of your birth, recorded by the position of stars and planets, revealed your temperament, your fortune, even your death. Stargazing was no longer just poetry, it became personality. The moon goddess Luna was worshipped alongside Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun. Her temples were quieter, smaller but deeply feminine and mystical. It was said she walked the night skies with a silver chariot pulled by white horses. Those who prayed to her did so with water and soft songs. In Unya, the night sky was a tapestry of karma and cosmic rhythm. The Nakshatra's 27 lunar mansions divided the sky not by constellations, but by emotional and spiritual qualities. Each nakshatra ruled a part of human experience: love, fear, growth, endings. Astrologers could read your dream, your illness, your soul's desire just by knowing where the moon stood that night. And so the stars weren't above you, they were within you. In China, the stars were the court of the heavens. Each star cluster represented ministers, warriors, dragons, or empresses. The emperor himself was believed to be the son of heaven, his fate reflected in celestial movements. When comets appeared, or stars flared unexpectedly, it was seen as warning, a cosmic letter from the ancestors. The moon festivals were deeply poetic, celebrating reunion, memory, longing. Families gathered to admire the full moon, eating cakes, reciting verses, remembering those who had walked under past moons. Even today, the phrase "we look at the same moon" comes from that ancient longing to feel connected across distance and time. And so, as you rest tonight, you are not small under the stars. You are part of them, woven into the same sky that watched over priests and warriors, sailors and queens, dreamers and sages. The night does not forget. In our next chapter, we will explore how night shaped ancient medicine and healing, how darkness was used, not just to rest, but to repair the body, spirit, and soul. But for now, gaze inward, let your own stars begin to flicker. You are safe. You are seen. Sleep under the sky that still remembers your name. Healing in the dark, how night was used for rest and restoration. Sleep was not always escape, it was medicine. The ancient world knew what we often forget, that the body heals best in quiet, that the spirit finds balance in stillness, that the night, with all its shadows, can be a sacred space for repair. Before the invention of pills, machines, or artificial light, healing was rooted in nature's rhythms, and night was the great physician. Let us begin in ancient Greece, where healing temples called Asclepians used sleep itself as a tool for restoration. Patients came not just to be treated, but to dream after rituals of purification. Bathing, fasting, prayers, they would lie on sacred stone beds inside dim halls. This process was called incubation. As they slept, it was believed that Asclepius, the god of healing, would appear in dreams, perhaps as a man, perhaps as a serpent, offering visions of treatment or even direct spiritual surgery. In the morning, temple priests interpreted these dreams, offering herbal remedies, diets, exercises, or simply peace. Sleep was not passive, it was part of the cure. In Egypt, healing and dreaming were deeply linked as well. Temples to Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of medicine, included chambers where patients rested overnight after receiving rituals with oils, chants, and incense. The most powerful moments of healing were believed to happen during the darkest hours between the second and fourth watches of the night, when both body and soul were most open. Priests sometimes whispered sacred words into the ears of the sleeping, hoping the vibration would sink into the unconscious mind, realigning the spirit. In India, the night was honored in Ayurveda, the ancient system of life knowledge. Sleep was considered one of the 3 pillars of health, along with food and sexuality. A person who could not sleep was said to have disturbed dosha's energetic imbalances. To restore harmony, they used oil massages before bed, herbal infusions like Brahmi, Jatamansi or Ashwagandha, and nightly mantras to cool the nervous system. More than anything, sleep was sacred. The body did not just rest, it recalibrated. In China, traditional Chinese medicine TCM viewed night as the yin realm, when blood returns to the liver, when energy descends inward, when restoration begins. TCM mapped organs not just by structure, but by time of day. The liver, for example, was most active around 1 to 3 a.m. Those who stayed awake during that period were believed to suffer irritability, poor vision, or stagnant emotions. Healing involved surrender, not action. Doctors often prescribed sleep in darkness as medicine itself, and silence was emphasized, because sound was seen to scatter ki, the vital energy needed for recovery. In Mesopotamia, sickness was often seen as spiritual intrusion, yet even there, night had healing potential. Some tablets describe rituals where a sick person would lie in complete silence, surrounded by symbols of gods, while a priest read from incantation scrolls, pausing between verses to let the night absorb the illness. Moonlight was considered purifying. A person might be placed on a rooftop bed to receive the healing of lunar rays. In Rome, doctors like Galen and Celsus spoke of restorative sleep as central to healing. Wounds healed faster, fevers dropped, minds cleared when the body gave itself fully to night. Warm baths before bed were not indulgence, but prescription. Chamomile, valerian, and poppy tinctures were administered to encourage rest, and even dreams were recorded to track the body's recovery. What united all these cultures was the understanding that healing does not always require doing. Sometimes it requires letting go, and night was where the letting go began. So as you rest tonight, know this: you are not weak for sleeping. You are wise. You are not avoiding life. You are restoring it. Every breath you take in darkness is a step toward equilibrium. Every heartbeat in stillness, a drum of renewal. In our next chapter, we'll explore how night shaped stories and myths, how the darkness gave birth to gods, creatures, and tales that carried lessons across generations. But for now, close your eyes with reverence. Your body remembers what the ancients knew. The night is not absence, it is alchemy. Night of myths, creatures, gods, and stories born in the dark. Long before night meant Netflix or light switches, it meant stories. When the sun disappeared, the fire was lit, not only to keep warm, but to gather around and remember. Remember who we are, where we came from, and what lived beyond the edge of sight, because the night was a portal, and stories were how ancient people passed through it, with courage, with curiosity, and sometimes with fear. Let us begin where storytelling was sacred. Ancient Greece. The Greeks gave the night a mother, Nyx, born from chaos itself. She was not evil. She was primordial, older than Zeus, respected by all gods. From her came Hypnos, god of sleep; Thanatos, god of death; Eris, goddess of discord; Momos, god of mockery and the fates, who wove destiny inside. Was not seen often in myths, but when she was, she walked quietly, her presence enough to hush Olympus in the stillness of night. Greek children heard tales of the Impusa, a shape-shifting phantom who preyed on travelers; the Moirai, who clipped the thread of life at midnight; or Hecate, goddess of crossroads, who walked with dogs and ghosts under the moon. Night was the realm of magic, transformation, and consequence. In Mesopotamia, stories of the night included creatures like the Lamash, a demon who stole babies in their sleep; the Pazuzu, her rival, summoned to drive her away; and the ghosts of those unburied, who wandered in endless dusk, seeking peace. Priests and poets alike spoke of nights when the gods themselves disguised as mortals, appearing in dreams or shadows to test the heart. These tales were not just a scare, they were moral codes, wrapped in fear, teaching humility, purity, and vigilance. In Egypt, night was cosmology itself. Each night, Ra, the sun god, sailed through the underworld called Duat. This was not myth, it was spiritual geography. Ra's boat, the Manjet, passed through 12 gates, one for each hour of the night. At each gate he faced monsters, tests, serpents, and trials. Chief among them, Apophis, the great chaos snake. If Ra failed, the sun would not rise. The world would fall into eternal dark. So, each sunrise was a story with a happy ending. Children heard these tales as lullabies, not to frighten, but to frame the night as a journey of courage. In India, stories of night included beings from both light and shadow. The Yakshinis, sometimes benevolent, sometimes deadly, appeared in forests and crossroads, often offering knowledge or illusion. The Vetala, spirit dwellers in corpses, were said to whisper riddles to those who dared enter cemeteries at night, yet not all was fear. Goddesses like Kali danced in darkness, not as horror, but as fierce love, destroying illusion to bring awakening. The moon itself, Chandra, was a deity, pale, poetic, and ever-changing, embodying the mind and the power of renewal. In Rome, myths of night were absorbed from Greeks, but took local form. Somnus, god of sleep, was believed to live in a dark cave, with poppy fields at the entrance, and no sound inside. No roosters crowed, no dogs barked, only silence. A sanctuary. His brother, Mors, was death, not terrifying but gentle. Romans told stories of nocturnal omens, owls that foretold death, shadows and mirrors, dreams that foretold earthquakes, and of course there were tales of the manes, spirits, of ancestors who could visit during sacred nights, to guide or to warn. In China, night myths flowed with Taoist philosophy. Spirits moved in yin, quiet, dark, hidden. Not all were evil. Some were watchers, guides, or lost ancestors. The Hai by Wu Chang to guardians of the underworld. One dark, one light, appeared at night to escort souls. Legends tell of fox spirits, especially female foxes, who could take human form and appear under the moon to test the virtue of men. Stories weren't just entertainment. They were maps of behavior, reflections of cosmic law. And in all these cultures, stories told at night shaped the way people saw sleep, saw fear, saw life and death. Because what is myth but truth in costume? And what is the night, if not the perfect stage for transformation? As you drift off tonight, think of the stories whispered for thousands of years, not to scare you, but to cradle you in meaning. You are part of the myth now. Your sleep is a sacred act. Your dreams a new story in the oldest book of all. In our next chapter, we will explore how time itself was measured by night, how ancient people used stars, candles, and silence to mark the rhythm of hours, while the world slept. But for now, close the book. Let the story rest beside you. Sleep is not the end of the tale. It is where the magic begins. Time in darkness. How ancient people measured the night. Before wristwatches, before ticking clocks or glowing screens, there was night. Vast, quiet, immeasurable. And yet, the ancients found ways to read it. Because even in darkness, time breathed. The question was never just, what time is it? But what hour of the night are we in? What stars are rising? What shadows fall where? And what should the soul be doing now? Let us begin in ancient Egypt, where time was sacred, especially at night. Priests and temples divided the night into 12 hours, each ruled by a different deity, each with specific symbols, energies, and meanings. These were not just numbers. They were stages of a journey. As the sun god Ra traveled through the underworld, he passed through 12 gates, one for each hour. Each gate marked a moment of struggle or transition, and each hour had its own protective spell. To align yourself with these sacred hours was to align with the cosmic rhythm. In Mesopotamia, the night was split into watches. There were 3 primary night watches: evening watch, around sunset to midnight; middle watch, midnight to around 3 a.m. morning watch, from then until dawn. Each watch was marked, not by bells, but by the appearance of specific stars. Priests would climb ziggurats, temple towers, to observe the heavens. When a certain star rose above the horizon, it was time to change the guard, or begin a ritual, or offer prayer. Even in sleep, time was tracked by the movement of heaven. In Greece, the night was also divided into 4 watches, known as Phi Upsilon, Lambda, Alpha Kappa, Y Sigma. For likes, first watch, sunset to 9 p.m., second watch, 9 p.m. to midnight, third watch, midnight to 3 a.m., fourth watch, 3 a.m. to dawn. These divisions weren't just military, they shaped myth and poetry. Many tragedies and epic tales place critical events at the third or fourth watch, when the world is at its quietest, when gods and mortals meet, when the veil is thinnest. In Rome, timekeeping at night became more technical. They used water clocks, known as clepsydra, which measured time by the flow of water from one vessel to another, in temples and courts. These clocks determined the length of speeches, rituals, or prayers. But the stars remained supreme. The Big Dipper was used as a guide. Its rotation in the night sky served as a slow, circular clock. Farmers rose by Venus, the morning star, and travelers often began their journeys at the first light of Sirius. In India, night was deeply embedded. In Jyotisha, the science of light, or Vedic astrology, time was measured not in hours, but in muhurta, 48-minute blocks. The night had its own muhurta cycles, and certain moments were considered more favorable for dreaming, praying, or healing. Monks and yogis often rose in Brahma Muhurta, the last portion of the night, just before dawn, a time said to be infused with clarity and divine silence. In China, the night was divided into 5 watches, each lasting roughly 2 hours. These watches were signaled by gongs, or drums in city towers or palace halls. The first watch began at dusk. The 5th ended at sunrise. Each watch had elemental and symbolic meanings. First watch, wood beginnings, growth. Second watch, fire, emotions, clarity. Third watch, earth, stability, transformation. Fourth watch, metal, release, reflection. Fifth watch, water, dreams, renewal. Doctors even associated organ activity with watches. The lungs, for instance, were believed to cleanse themselves between 3 and 5 a.m. A cough at that hour meant emotional grief was surfacing. Night wasn't empty. It was structured, coded with meaning. Even in medieval monasteries, long after the ancient empires fell, monks still rang bells at designated night hours, matins, lauds, vigils, carrying forward the tradition of sacred nighttime rhythm. And so, tonight, as you lie still, know that your body is remembering a rhythm older than clocks. A flow marked by silence, by breath, by shadow and starlight. You do not need to measure the hours. You are inside them. In our next chapter, we'll journey into the rituals and ceremonies that took place only at night, from moonlit dances to sacred fasts and divine initiations. But for now, let time be forgotten. Let your heartbeat be your clock, and your dreams your calendar. The night knows exactly what hour it is, and that is enough. Sacred after sunset, rituals, fasts, and ceremonies of the night. Some things could not happen in daylight. The sun saw too much. It burned away illusion, exposed every flaw. But the night held space for the mystical, the transformative, the sacred. Across the ancient world, rituals were not only performed despite the darkness, but because of it. Because something in the soul wakes when the world goes quiet. Let us begin in ancient Greece, at the foot of Mount Eleusis. Here, once a year, thousands of pilgrims walked in silence to participate in the Eleusinian Mysteries, a secret ritual dedicated to Demeter and Persephone. It happened only at night. Torches lit the sacred halls. Initiates fasted, purified, prepared. They entered the Telesterion, where no outsider ever learned what occurred. But those who emerged spoke of visions, of death and rebirth, of drinking a sacred brew and encountering the divine. The night was the womb of the gods, and they had been reborn inside it. In Egypt, night rituals honored the sun's journey through the underworld. Priests in great temples performed midnight ceremonies to assist Ra's passage. Chants were recited in strict rhythm. Incense burned as maps of the underworld were traced. Offerings were made to gods who only awoke after dusk, like Khonsu, the moon deity. The new moon was a particularly sacred night. When the sky was dark, Egyptians believed it was a moment of powerful stillness, ideal for cleansing rituals. An invocations. In Rome, the Lemuria festival was held on midnight nights in May. Citizens honored and feared the restless dead, spirits who had not found peace. At midnight, the paterfamilias, head of the household, walked barefoot, tossing black beans behind him, chanting 9 times, "With these beans, I redeem me and mine." It was a ritual of release, an act of making peace with what haunts us. The night was not just for dreaming, it was for atonement. In India, spiritual practice and devotion often began before dawn. But many sacred rites occurred deep into the night. The festival of Mahashivratri, the great night of Shiva, was one of the holiest. Devotees fasted, kept vigil, and sang hymns until sunrise. Temples were lit with oil lamps. Offerings of water, milk, and flowers were made to Shiva lingams, symbolizing the union of destruction and renewal. The night was not silent. It echoed with mantras. The veil between worlds was thinnest, and spiritual merit doubled under starlight. In China, Taoist rituals often occurred at night, especially those involving spirits, exorcisms, or ancestral offerings. Lanterns lit the paths to temples. Paper talismans were burned to carry messages to the other world. Priests wore robes inscribed with celestial symbols, mimicking the movement of constellations. The Ghost Festival, held on the 15th night of the 7th lunar month, was a night when spirits roamed freely. Families left food by windows, lit incense, floated lanterns on rivers. Not to scare the dead, but to comfort them, to say, "We remember you, we still walk with you, even in dreams." In Mesopotamia, some of the oldest known incantations and healing rituals were performed in darkness, accompanied by the slow beating of drums and the reading of night tablets. Texts reserved only for moonlit ceremonies. Night was a ritual space, a canvas upon which the human soul painted its longing for meaning, for mercy, for transformation. Even in indigenous and tribal societies, from the Amazon to the Arctic, night remains the chosen time for vision quests, initiation rites, and ceremonies of passage, because the dark does something the light cannot. It asks you to face yourself, and in doing so, it prepares you for what comes next. So tonight, if you feel something stirring, a memory, a dream, a longing, know that your ancestors once stood in the same shadows, with their hands lifted, their hearts open, their souls whispering to the sky. In our final chapter, we'll reflect on how the night still lives inside us, how its ancient meanings echo in our modern sleep, fears, and dreams. But for now, let the ceremony be simple. You, resting, the night, watching, and the silence, sacred. The night remains, echoes of ancient darkness in the modern soul. The candles have burned low, the stars have shifted again, and you are still here breathing, softly in the quiet of now. But something ancient has stirred in you, a memory not from this life, but from all life, because night never really left us. It simply changed clothes. Once, we gazed at it with awe. Now, we closed the blinds. Once, we welcomed its silence. Now, we fill it with noise. And yet, something inside us still remembers. The body still softens when the sun disappears. The breath still slows when the sky turns indigo. And the soul still listens for a whisper that only night can give. All the stories you've heard across these 10 chapters, they were never just about ancient people. They were about you who still watches the moon and feels something unspoken, you who closes your eyes at midnight and sees more clearly than at noon, you who dreams not to escape, but to return to a place you forgot you belonged to. Because the night is not just darkness, it is memory, it is invitation, it is the mirror of everything we can't quite say in daylight. And perhaps that's why, no matter how far we advance, we still tell bedtime stories, we still light candles when someone passes, we still say goodnight as if it were a prayer, because some truths only arrive after the sun sets. The ancient ones knew that. They didn't fear the dark, they partnered with it, they danced with it, they built temples inside of it. And now, so do you. Tonight, as you lie in silence, you are surrounded by generations who did the same. Priests, poets, mothers, warriors, scribes, all of them once paused, once sighed, once rested under the same sky. And even though the world looks different, the night remains. Its rhythm still pulses in your chest. Its quiet still heals your bones. Its mysteries still reach for you, not to frighten, but to remind you that you are part of something timeless. You are not alone in the dark. You never were. So let your mind settle. Let your body drift. The stars are still telling stories. And now, one of them is you. Good night, ancient soul. Sleep well, sacred one. The night remembers you, and it always will.